I am very excited to welcome Harsh Strongman from LifeMathMoney as our special guest for the first episode of the Money Master podcast. For those who don't know him, Harsh is a chartered accountant, and along with it, he is the creator of Life Math Money blog. He has more than 270,000 followers on Twitter. He is also the author of The Art of Twitter Guide and the creator of Live Intentionally 90 Days Self Improvement Program. Hi, Harsh. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Pooja. What about yourself?
All good here. Thanks for asking. So, I want to start with a very basic question, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who know you, they will be knowing the answer, but I still want to ask regardless. So, how did you come up with the idea of Life Math Money? I remember you telling me that it started as a hobby. Then, how did you actually turn this hobby into a full-fledged business?
So, you're right. It started as a complete hobby. I did not expect it to grow that much. I created a website, I made lifemathmoney.com, and then I wrote up some articles on it. And then I waited for a while for people to come and read them, leave me comments, but no one came. So then I decided that I will have to promote it somehow, otherwise, no one will know it even exists. And I had seen other people use Twitter successfully, like the guy from Danger and Play, Mike Cernovich, Wall Street Playboys, etc., etc., Ed Latimer. And that's how I decided to start Twitter. The intention was simply to promote LMM articles. And then what happened is that Twitter treated me very kindly. I grew a lot on Twitter, and that's how a lot of people know me. And I've used the growth I had on Twitter to grow other platforms. And now it's more of a self sustaining ecosystem where I have YouTube, Instagram, Telegram, Twitter, a blog, a newsletter with over 21,000 people, etc.
That's insane, man. So, Mike Cernovich, I know you know him from the book. What about other creators? How did you actually know that they are having an amazing growth or following on Twitter and that's actually useful for the business?
Because I used to read Mike Cernovich's Twitter and I knew the people he interacted with. So I saw like Ed Latimer. Then I found, I think, Wall Street Playboys from his blogs. And there was a guy called Victor Pride who he was a huge influence on me. Although lately he has become Christian and has left the business of blogging. And you also asked me how I made it a business, and that was very simple. I had an audience, and people would frequently ask me questions like, how do I be more disciplined? How do I be more focused? And so I decided to create a product that will serve their needs. So you know what happens, what used to happen at least, was that people would first make a product and then find a way, then they would find people whom they can sell it to. I had the opposite experience. I had an audience who wanted a solution to a problem, and then I just made that solution. So that's how LMM became a business. Like I wrote an ebook that answers an important question that most of my audience had been asking me. How do they be more disciplined? How do they be more focused? How do they improve themselves, etc.
It's pretty interesting because you first put out your content, and when people started looking up to you, they started asking doubts from you how you can help them in improving their lives, and that made you create the product, which is like really successful today. Your 90 days program, or be it your Twitter guide. So great! Congratulations, man, for all this success that you've achieved all these years. So
Hey, there's more to come. This is just the start. It's not a lot of success to be said, because if you look at, I would not say that I'm wildly successful or anything. I would just say that it has worked so far.
indeed, obviously. Okay, so one more question from this. Being a founder myself, I know the challenges of building your own startup. But Harsh, you have been a solo founder from the very beginning. So could you please share some of the specific challenges that you faced because of not having a co founder?
I didn't face any particular challenge, to be honest. There was I don't know what downside I could have faced by not having a co-founder, but if there was, then I didn't face it. I just, maybe I got lucky, or maybe it's not as big of a deal as people make it out to be.
Hmm.
but no challenges so far. Everything has been going smoothly. The only big issue I would say is that, when you're one person, then you can't focus on 10 things at once, because then you're like trying to move in all directions. So if there was, say, five of me, then I could do a lot of different platforms from day one, but I couldn't do that being one person. So I had to rely on automatic tools and things of that sort. So even if you look currently, my Instagram content is just a Python script that screenshots my Twitter and posts it on Instagram.
Hmm.
It is not new content, and that's simply because there's only so much content I can produce, and I can't make different content for all the platforms, so I have to reuse content.
Hmm.
And I would say that if you have a co-founder, you have problems like this figured out because you are many people.
Right. But don't you think it also served you as a blessing in disguise, because that's how you got introduced to the world of automation and making things happen with just like a click?
I do think that is true. I do think that had I not had a need for automation, I would not have been such a big fan of it. I love automation and the fact that so much can be done simply by software itself, and you don't have to spend any time doing it. I think automation is going to be a huge game changer in the future. It is a game changer now as well, but even bigger than what it is. People don't realize what's coming.
Yeah, true. By the way, Y Combinator suggests startups to have a co founder. What are your thoughts on that?
I know why Combinator suggests that, and I think the type of startups they do, it makes sense.
Hmm.
I also think that for Y Combinator, it's kind of like a filtering mechanism. And this was something that was told to me by Sahil Lavinga,
Hmm.
who is the founder of Gumroad. He said that, say, for example, if you are, giving people money to start a business, and if you have your criteria be that you are at least two people, then you can filter out a lot of people, because otherwise everyone's a solo founder. Like anyone can come up and say, I'm a solo founder.
Hmm.
So if you have one person with you, that's a good criteria that, okay, so at least one person is willing to believe in this idea. So more than one person is willing to believe in this idea.
Hmm. Right. Makes sense. So let's go back to basics. Let's go back to the time when we were like really, really young. So at what age did you start earning, and what was your first salary, if you don't mind sharing?
I started like formally making money when I was 18. And I remember my first pay was like 9,000 rupees or something.
Okay. So what did you do with the first income?
Nothing. It was just in the bank.
So you didn't like spend it all, or maybe got some gifts for your parents or your friends? Nothing like it?
Not really, not really, not, no, no, no. I just kept it in the bank. I didn't spend it at all. I'm not someone who spends a lot, and my family aren't people who like want random gifts and things like that, because when you give someone something random that they don't need, they're not going to use it. So
Hmm.
it's not the culture we have in my family.
Hmm. So in my family, we don't have a tradition of pocket money. So I remember when the first time I invested money, I had to like borrow it from my mother that I want to invest money, please give it to me. So she gave some money to me, and it went on for a couple of months. And then when I was finally able to make money myself, then I stopped asking money from her. Uh,
What age did you start working?
19.
Wait, was it an article ship?
Yeah, yeah, articleship.
Ah, same thing, same
Same
thing.
thing, though. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
how much were you making as an article? Isn't that a question we all love to ask, at least back in the day? How much
yeah.
is your
We do.
stipend, bro?
We do, we do. I think in Faridabad it was 5K, 5 grand, so not much.
I see, I see. So, what did you do with your stipend money, the first one? Did you give it to your parents?
Same thing. I first gave it to my mother, but then she asked me, okay, why are you giving it to me? Deposit in your bank. So I deposited in my bank, and then I think that amount is still lying in my bank account. Like it has all only increased from there. So I don't remember like taking it out, or yeah, same
I
thing.
think the only major purchase I made from my articleship money, like outside of investments, was a G Shock watch that I still have and use.
Oh, that's great. I remember like splurging on a software video editor that I got from the money. Anyway,
Oh, which one was it?
it was a video editing software wherein you can use like some vectors and graphics to create animated videos. So I purchased that to for some experiment I wanted to make and wanted to run while making videos.
Yeah, you're very entrepreneurial that way. I know you're doing a lot of stuff, so that's really cool.
Yeah. So, in today's time, Harsh, there are hundreds of influencers who are selling the idea of passive income. And that's why I asked this question of first income and first salary and like what did we do with that. So, a lot of influencers are selling this idea of passive income, but what youngsters do not realize is the importance of having an active source of income first. And I'd like you to share your thoughts on this.
How do you define active and passive income? Because a lot of different people define it in different ways. So, for example, some people think of passive income as, say, having an FD and just getting interest, while other people think of passive income as stuff like having a website that makes you money while you sleep. So, I'm not a big fan of the passive income where you bought dividend paying stocks and then you live off the dividend. Not a huge fan of that at all because your wealth is not growing that much. I think I'm a bigger fan of automated income, I would say. For example, let's say that you create a website which reviews a particular product, and then people come to that website and then they buy that product and you get a commission from the sale. So that is something you don't have to actively work for. So it's not active income. It's you already made the website, but it's not fully passive either. It's basically automated. You know what I mean to
Hmm.
say?
I know, I know. I understand.
I would say the best approach is a scalable, automated system of making money and not something like fixed deposits or dividend stocks, and also not completely active like you being a professional and running like a CA practice or being a teacher or a doctor or anything that requires you to be present at all times.
Hmm.
So, and there's always a way to make something more automatic. So, I will give you an example of the field that you yourself are involved in. Let's say that you're a teacher. Okay, so the active way to make money would be to, have a job and then go and teach students. The automated way to make money would be to record your lectures and then sell access to those lectures on the internet and then spend your time promoting the lectures every once in a while. So I'm a bigger fan of the more scalable automatic thing than the active or passive thing.
You just stole our business model. Thank you. But yeah, great insights. Because like on YouTube or even on Twitter, people like there's like constant debate about passive income, active income, but automated income is my takeaway from this particular conversation. So great, thank you. And now, because our channel, The Money Master, on the basis of which we've created this podcast, is all about investing, stock markets, business case studies, and economics in general. So, Harsh, my next question is to you. Who introduced you to the world of investing and how did you build on that interest?
Oh, the first person who introduced me to the world of investing was my father. And my dad is way more conscious with money than I am. His background is more humble than mine. So,
Hmm.
he has always been someone who likes to invest money, saves whatever he can, and doesn't splurge at all. And those values, I would say, I inherited to an extent.
Hmm.
and yeah, that's how I got introduced to investing. So I remember, so when I was earning money from my articleship, my dad kind of had me open a demat account and I would use that to buy shares and I would just invest it.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was my first experience with investing, like just simply buying equity shares and keeping them from my articleship money.
Hmm. And how did you kept that interest alive and how did you build upon that interest? Because I believe you
I didn't.
still.
I didn't keep that interest alive. I did not. In the sense that I didn't invest that much in equities.
Okay.
I Ever since cryptocurrencies became more popular, that's what I moved my interest to. I wouldn't say interest, because for a while I was just busy with my CA my CA thing ending, preparing for the exams where I wasn't working. And then I started Life Math Money and things of that sort. My affiliate marketing business as well. And after that, it's pretty much been crypto, crypto, crypto. And crypto isn't too complex for people who have studied even a bit of it. It's
Hmm.
For a long time I was just buying Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's a simple strategy, but it has worked so far.
Hmm. So it's pretty great. I was introduced to the world of investing by my mentor, Neeraj Arora sir. You know him also. So I remember he was the one who told me, okay, you should start an SIP. So it wasn't about like active investing or directly investing in equity. It was about starting with mutual funds, probably like passive funds, and then when you have time, study about the equity market, study about the fundamental analysis, and then actively invest in equities. So yeah, that's how I got introduced to the world. And remember I was telling you about how I borrowed money from my mother to invest. That's what I told her,
Hmm.
that yeah. So he was the motivation behind that, and I told my mother that I will be like, you can take that money back anytime you want, and but please give it to me for some time, and then invested that money in a demat account in mutual funds. So I stopped it, like I said, after a couple of months, and I was like myself making money and started studying about mutual funds, passive, active funds, and a bit about fundamental analysis and everything. And a couple of days ago, I was checking that old demat account, and the money had almost doubled, like more than doubled, I would say. So it was it was good. You were saying something.
That's interesting. It's actually really cool that your money doubled. I'm very happy for you. No, what I was going to say was that, to be fair, it's not this is like the time we actually started investing. But I don't know how your family was, but with me, I grew up, see, even when I was little, I grew up hearing everywhere that, like, to work a job is like a waste of time and you should start a business. And it's just something that I grew up listening to. It's a part of the culture.
I get it.
In a way, I was introduced to business and investing ever since I was very little, like as far back as I can remember. Because people would like disparage. Like, I remember my extended family, if you said that you were working a job,
Mm-hmm.
people would look at you with contempt.
Oh.
Like, what are you doing? Like, why? So
Hmm.
it's more of a business type culture.
Hmm.
What about yourself? Did you have the same experience?
No, our family's culture was like entirely different. It wasn't like too much focused on getting a job or something like that. It was more, I think as far as I remember, my father gave us full freedom, like do whatever you want to do, but just be good at whatever you do. It was kind of like that. And like I got introduced to entrepreneurship right in my articleship. My brother got into job, so like all sorts of different experiences in the same family. So it wasn't like having a business wasn't the culture of the family, but like my father is also into the business now, so now he's very much okay of the ideology that eventually you should be having your own business, because he was into job and he realized that how painful it can get, and the scalability of the business is just like it's just mind blowing. So yeah, now he's of the ideology that eventually you should have something, start something of your own. But nonetheless, he doesn't shun the idea of doing a job, or as you said, we do not look at somebody with contempt, the person who's doing job.
Hey,
So
to be fair, I don't look at people with
I,
contempt
I know, I
for
know
doing
you
it
don't.
either.
It was just
It's a, like a cultural thing, maybe.
yeah. And a lot of families are like that. So it's just like different ideology, man. It's fine. It's just their way of looking at life, or looking at things. It's fine.
But what's more interesting is that outside of your income sources, the principles of investing aren't that different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you still have to save money, you still have to invest, you have to put your money in things that will grow, and you still have to keep increasing your source of income. and you have to still diversify what investments you're making. So the principles of investing money are always the same, more or less.
Yeah, that's just the gist of investing in equity market or investing in any business or investing money anywhere for that matter, right?
Yeah, that would be the gist. If you have special knowledge, then I would say diversifying is a mistake, because if you know the probability of something happening is very high, say you know very well that some company is going to do really well because you are involved in that company, say, in that case it makes sense to put a huge portion of money in that particular investment. But generally it makes sense to diversify,
Hmm.
because personally I'm not too diversified. I'm heavily into crypto.
Hmm. My next question was about people finding personal finance and investments very boring and overwhelming, especially people of our generation. They don't find it interesting, and some who actually want to learn, they eventually, lose interest in it. So I remember you telling me that you invested at the age of 18 or 19, like your father got
18,
your
19.
18. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you overcome that resistance? Okay, not equity per se, but even in crypto, like you must have found it overwhelming initially, and then
So to be honest, I've never found learning to be a boring or uninteresting thing. So I didn't have this issue. Say not wanting to learn more about money because they find it uninteresting. They're NGMI, they're not going to make it. They're screwed from the beginning.
hmm.
Because if they're unwilling to start learning, then how can they execute properly? They can't. So such people, I don't think they can be helped unless they somehow figure out how they can learn about it without having themselves be bored. I don't really understand why it's boring. Like, money is interesting. Like, you learn more about money, you make more of it. So that's fun to me, at least. With crypto, yeah, when I started, I didn't really know that much about how crypto worked. And to learn that, in fact, I ended up making my own course as a way to motivate myself to learn. The course is completely free. It's available on teachyourselfcrypto.com. And the course, so far I've released like 4 modules. It's over 80 hours long. It's completely free. And the main reason I made it was so that I get to learn myself. So I learned everything about Bitcoin, Ethereum, DeFi, how dApps work, how ENS works, etc., how Monero is working, how privacy coins hide your transactions. And I learned a lot of it simply because I wanted to invest more and I wanted to know what the future technologies are going to be. And the future is crypto. And the initial resistance that I had to crypto was I thought it was like bullshit. I remember coming across Bitcoin in 2014 and 2013 or 14. And I remember thinking that, hey, this is like some nonsense these people are doing. And I just dismissed it entirely.
Hmm.
And that was a mistake. Oh, of course, it was a mistake. And then I remember taking crypto more seriously back in 2017, but I didn't invest that much because I thought I used to think of crypto as a stock, and that is not really a fair assessment of crypto, because what I would think was there's no underlying, and I should rather invest in something that has an underlying asset.
Hmm.
But crypto is more it's a currency, it's not a stock. So in the future, as I learned more about crypto, that misconception cleared up. The value was in the network effects and not in the underlying assets. So yeah, that was my initial resistance with crypto, and that's how I got over it. I just learned more about it. And of course, being someone who sells things on the internet, you end up having a pretty good insight into what currencies people want to use. And you really realize the value of crypto when you find out that, say, the value of the Turkish lira has dropped
Hmm.
50% in like a couple of months, and the European Union has printed a lot of euros. The US dollar has been printed a lot in the past year. Our own currency has been diluted quite a bit. As you can see, it's inflating so fast. And there is real value in crypto, and that's why I invested in it and continue to invest more.
Hmm. But like one great insight that I can take away from this is that if you really want to learn something, then probably you should become your own teacher. Like the way you created the course so that you can delve deeper into this entire world of crypto. That's just like amazing. I don't see a lot of people doing it. It's a great insight. Thank you so much for this one.
What's interesting about that particular course is that I totally misjudged how big crypto is. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I remember I started working on the course back in March, and I thought this is going to take 1 month for me to learn everything about Bitcoin, Ethereum, DeFi, and everything else. And so far, it's been about 10 months, and I'm halfway through.
Hmm.
And it's just not me working on it. I have a co-author who is an expert on this topic. His name is Sergio. He was working for AWS and Amazon and a lot of other big companies in tech. So
Hmm.
with the two of us creating the course, and we also have a beta student named Ash. So with the three of us working together, in 10 months we're like only 60% through.
Hmm.
It, you can imagine how big the entire ecosystem is, and it continues to grow. Although I do think that for someone who's new to investing, they should learn more about crypto before buying it because it's just so volatile that if someone's like, see, they made their first salary, okay, let's say they made X dollars or X rupees, they invest a small portion of it in crypto and suddenly crypto halves and then they're having a panic attack. So you have to be somewhat willing to handle the volatility. You need to have a strong heart, diamond hands.
Hmm. You should be ready to invest in the crypto if you're like completely okay with letting go of that money entirely. So like you should be that comfortable. Okay, this is the money that even if I lost it completely, I'm fine with it. So that's what I did when I got introduced to crypto investing.
Maybe. I don't know about that. I don't think the money needs to be that funny money, where you can just willing to lose it because I don't think crypto will go to zero like a lot of other people think. But yeah, I would say that's a good precautionary step to take.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts? How did you get into investing in equities, etc., and what type of investments do you currently make?
So, like I told you, initially it was just mutual funds and active mutual fund. When I just selected one fund, when my broker called me like, "This is a good fund, invest in it." Started with an SIP, and then got introduced to passive funds like the indices of the country, the Sensex and Nifty, that you can invest into them. And that's when I started another SIP. And later read books about it by Saurav Mukherjee, Unusual Billionaires, wherein he talked about the fundamental analysis. He talked about how his company conducts the analysis and what all things he takes care of when they are analyzing the stock of a company. And that's when I actually, my interest into equities got deeper. And that's when I actually started investing directly into the equities. So it didn't happen like very early until last year, I would say. uh, until last year I was totally invested in mutual funds and a bit of FDs just for the sake of emergency fund. So yeah, and like I have good exposure in equities. I have like 25% exposure in crypto as well. Like I told you, like that's just free money for me. I'm okay losing it all, but even I'm sure that it won't go to zero. But it's just that, just my way of keeping my eggs in different basket and like diversifying my portfolio. It's kind of like that. I've also invested into one debt fund, and I was starting to invest in US funds, but I'm yet to explore more of it and understand the entire concepts of investing in foreign stocks.
Ah, that's very interesting. You know what's really cool that you mentioned earlier was SIPs.
Mm-hmm.
I think SIPs are very underrated when it comes to investing because if you are someone who is like making a regular income, then SIPs are like a way to force yourself to save money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have money in the bank, then a lot of people will just spend it because it's there. But SIP is just sucking the money every month away from you, so you can't spend it. And it forces you to essentially save a good chunk of money every year without you realizing it happening.
There's actually one of the questions that I wanted to ask, that a lot of people, they do not have saving habits. So I was thinking that if you could tell us about saving tips that you would like to give to people who are in their college or they're in 20s. So yeah, one heads up for SIP. What other things would you like to suggest?
My main suggestion is to not focus too much on savings. And for some people, it comes off as like, what? Like, what are you saying? Here's the thing, okay? I'll first still give you the common wisdom on, you know, being rich. Okay, it usually comes down to save like a good percentage of your income and then invest it in the stock market, and don't buy things like coffee or whatever. Okay, and that's fine, but that has a huge toll on your life, in the sense that, what are you just supposed to enjoy your income when you're like 70 years old?
Hmm.
So, not a huge fan of that. Here is my alternative. Instead of focusing too much on just saving money, focus on how you can increase your income. So if you are someone who is in their 20s, don't be overly focused on how do I save as much money as possible, and walking home instead of taking a rick, or taking an Uber or something. And instead focus on how can you make more money. What businesses can you start? Let's say you can start a YouTube channel, maybe you can leverage the internet and generate some cash for yourself every month. And that is what will actually make you rich, because you will never get rich saving money. It just, the math doesn't work. You will get rich if you increase your income significantly, and the way to do that is the internet. And a lot of people, they think, yeah, I want to start a business, but what do I do? And that's a bullshit reason. Like that's complete bullshit, because you can just, if you go to Google and you search 100 business ideas, you will get 100 decent business ideas. And you will find a lot of people just sitting at home, and they want to come up with like some insanely great idea, like I want to start the next Uber. And until I get the idea of starting the next Uber, I'll just sit in my house and watch YouTube and entertainment and Netflix and whatever else. So just start a business, even if it's something as simple as starting a blog or a YouTube account and making videos, or even a podcast, or anything. Okay, just start anything, and then you will learn more and more and more, and eventually you will figure it out. Learn affiliate marketing, learn how to make a website, learn copywriting. You could even do freelancing, consulting, etc. The main thing I recommend young people to focus on is to increase your income, start a business, or try and increase your income, any way possible. You will never become rich in any way, shape, or form by just saving money and working a job. It's just not going to happen. So, the main thing is to focus on raising your income. The second thing to focus on is to not waste money. And what I mean to say by wasting money is, don't go around buying watches you can't afford. Like, don't pay like $4,000 for a watch, or
Hmm.
don't buy things that are cash sinkholes, like buying a very expensive car. You don't Do you need that car or not? Because these things require maintenance, and these things are going to, they're going to act as like a way for you to sink your wealth into something that is depreciating. So don't buy depreciating assets if you can help it. And thirdly, you need to invest your money properly. So don't do dumb things like, gambling, or whatever ways people typically lose money, spending it all on partying and
Hmm.
buying super expensive stuff that they don't need, luxury stuff. And be careful with your expenses, but not to the point that it's affecting your lifestyle. Keep that in mind. Like, I don't want you to not drink coffee, but don't be buying like a shirt that costs $300. Don't do that. People do that sometimes. Don't do it.
Hmm.
So that is my main advice to young people. Because if even if you're like, let's say you're someone who doesn't start a business, and you're doing the saving routes, okay, you're saving 10% of your income.
Hmm.
Well, your income is going to be not so much in your 20s if you don't have a business. If you're just working a job, how much are you going to make in your 20s? Not that much. And you're saving like a small percentage of that, so it's not going to amount to anything significant at least. So you are better off trying to increase your income. So focus on that, and don't waste money. Don't do dumb things that will help you. That will just make sure that you keep losing money. Like don't get an alcohol addiction. Don't start doing drugs, because that is going to make you real poor real fast. Yeah, and it's going to take a toll on your health as well. That is my simple advice to young people. And of course, the regular thing, like, don't if unless you understand an investment properly, don't invest too much money in it. Diversify your investments. Don't invest money in things like debt or
Hmm.
fiat currencies. Don't make FDs, because it's just losing value every year with inflation. Invest in things like equity stocks, mutual funds, or cryptocurrencies if you had the stomach for it, and things that will actually grow and create value in the future. Not things like you made an FD and you're making like 5% interest, but the inflation is like 20%. So you're losing 15% each year. So don't do things like that.
Yeah. Talk about savings bank. It's even worse. FD is like, okay, in comparison to savings, just savings account, it's still better. Like probably like
People don't even account for taxes. Like, you make like, say,
mm,
5%, but then the government steals 15% of it, like 30% of it.
30%. Yeah, let's just take the highest bracket. 30% is gone, and
You're left with three and a
if
half percent, even though inflation is like,
yeah, we're forgetting about the surcharge. We haven't even added that. People who are above.
it's laughable. It's
Yeah,
laughable.
it's laughable. So we were doing calculation. It was coming around almost 42 point something percent of your.
What?
Yes, I'm not even kidding. Yes.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
And to top it off, then you have to pay GST and the remaining 58%.
Hmm. Anyway, so you were talking about like people not wasting money. So I want to talk about YOLO ideology here. You only live once, wherein people they don't care much to invest or save. Do you have any advice for such people? Do you have any words of wisdom or food for thought for such people?
Save for a rainy day. I know what they mean by you only live once, okay? Let's say that you're like a 20-year-old. There are things you can do that you can't do at 70, but whatever you can do at 20, it's likely you can do it later. So you're letting your hot bloodedness kind of keep you poor. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have fun, but don't spend all of your money on fun. Fun is a part of life, but not life itself. So that is my main advice to you. And if someone truly believes in YOLO, and these people will usually save like nothing, and they'll have like no money in their bank account, and they depend on their next salary, say, to survive the next month.
Hmm.
Here is what sometimes happens, and this is not some when I say sometimes, I mean to say that it's going to happen to you every once in a while. What happens if you lose your job? Are you suddenly going to start starving to death? No, you will have to go and either borrow money or take money from your parents or whatever. You can't live an honorable life if you never keep a good amount of cash available with you, or cash or liquid assets in a way, because things do get rough every once in a while. Okay, you might get sick, you might, say, get injured, or might have an accident, and you might have hospital bills to pay, or you just might lose your job, or you might get a demotion. Lockdowns happened, and then a lot of people's salaries were cut. So these things happen, and what you don't want is that you getting into a situation where you have to borrow money from other people or depend on other people for your survival, because that is not an honorable way to live, especially when you had the ability to save and you just decided to blow your money on alcohol or whatever else you were yoloing about.
Hmm.
I think one thing a lot of people do wrong nowadays is taking on debt for consumer goods. That is the dumbest thing ever.
Hmm.
Do not take debt for consumer goods. Like, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, bro. You don't have to, don't borrow and buy. Just don't do it.
Hmm.
Like the only exception I can think of is that when it's cheaper to borrow and buy than to pay straight cash, which is true nowadays for some weird reason. For example, I recently bought this phone. It's an iPhone, and the phone would cost me, I don't remember exactly, this was last year. So it would cost me like 85,000 if I paid straight cash, and 75 if I took their EMI thing, because the EMI had no interest and they were giving me like 10,000 cash back or something. So
Hmm.
for the weird reason of paying them later and borrowing their EMI, it was cheaper for me. So unless you're in that situation, never borrow for a consumer good item. Pay cash. And if you can't pay cash, you can't afford it.
Hmm. Correct. Absolutely correct. And this reminds me of one when you were talking about that how one should be using the energy of the 20s to accomplish things while they still have energy and all the aggression to do stuff or do big things. So this reminds me of one quote that I read a couple of days ago. It was like, your 30s are your 20s with money. So it's like kind of like you'll be doing so you shouldn't be entirely like work. You should have fun for sure, but yeah, you shouldn't be like goofing around all the time as well, like.
See, I'll tell you what, Pooja, what happens is that when you're 20, you have zero responsibilities, or I would say at least minimal responsibilities, okay? So you have, say, no children. Most of us aren't married,
Hmm.
and most of us don't have, say, our families to feed.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of flexibility. And this is the time where you can experiment and start different businesses and see what works and learn business skills and things like that.
Yeah.
What happens if you waste this time is that you will become 30 at some point. It's going to happen to most of you unless you die on the way. And you will have responsibilities. Most people in India and abroad get married and have children.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen to you, me, everyone, almost everyone.
Almost
So
everyone. Your risk appetite is basically very high in your 20s.
yeah, moreover, since you have fewer responsibilities, you have more time and you have more energy, and that allows you to do more things. What happens when you're like 30? Not only you have like a basic minimum commitment, okay, you have to earn this much every month just to feed your family, pay the rent, and things like that, send the kids to school. And you can't suddenly decide, I want to quit my job and start a business, because you have all these obligations you have to meet. And that makes things really, really difficult, because you can't just start afresh. If something isn't working, let's say that your job is a dead end job and it's not going to ever get anywhere, you can't quit because you still have bills to pay. That is not the case in your 20s. So my recommendation is to use the freedom and the energy of your 20s to start a business and learn as much as you can, instead of doing the whole YOLO having fun thing, which, if you want to just be average, then you can do whatever you want. I'm not even sure why you're listening to me on this podcast. But if you want to be better than other people, you want to rise above, then you have to put in the work. And the 20s are the time to do it.
Hmm. Absolutely correct. Um, this also reminds me of one kid story. It's about Ant and the Grasshopper. Have you heard of it?
I have not. Please tell me more.
Okay, so it was uh, it's summer's time, and there is one ant, there is one grasshopper. So the ant is toiling hard by collecting wheat grains from the farmer's field, and it's working all the day long from dawn to dusk, collecting grains and then putting them back in the place where she saves, while the grasshopper, on the other hand, he's just singing and dancing all the time and having fun, enjoying the summer, enjoying the sunny day. So he kind of mocks the ant that, why are you working so hard? Like, enjoy the sun, enjoy the sunny day, and you need to relax a bit. And then, so a couple of months later, winters come and it's a very rainy day, and the grasshopper is like just hopping from one place to the other, and he has no food, no shelter, and then the ant comes, and then like she says to him that she toiled all the summer to save enough food for the winter, and the grasshopper had mocked her then, but then she looking at his conditions, she allows she gives him some food and shelter. So that day, like, kind of the grasshopper learned that what's the importance of saving enough for the winter or saving enough for the bad time. So the moral of the story is make hay while the sun shines. So yeah, that's the story of the ant and the grasshopper. It's funny that it's a kid's story, but it makes complete sense in today's time, and it applies to us as adults as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story, and I'm going to tell my children this. Don't be the grasshopper, man.
Yeah, don't be the grasshopper.
You know what's interesting is that a lot of people know about saving. They know that they should save money, but they their discipline levels are so low that they're not able to do it. For example, I have some friends who who are also chartered accountants, so they know about money, but they're so weak-willed that for example, this friend of mine, she will see something interesting and she will just buy it even though there's no way she can afford it. So she will have like a bunch of max out credit cards from a lot of different banks, and a big portion of her salary just goes in paying credit card interest. And
Hmm.
it's just one of those tragedies of our times, where people have just they've become so materialistic that they can't even keep themselves from buying things they don't need.
Hmm.
So try avoiding that if you can. Like, the last thing you want to do is be poor and in debt because your neighbors are spending more money than you. So just because your friends are buying something, you bought it, even though you couldn't afford it. Don't do that. If you can't afford something, that's fine.
Hmm.
There's no shame in not being able to afford something. It's okay to over splurge, or to borrow money and buying it. That is just dumb, especially if it's credit card debt, because credit card debt has such a huge rate of interest. Sometimes it's as high as like 15 or 20%,
Hmm.
and that is insane. That is insanely high. You're basically working and making the credit card company rich.
Hmm.
If you have credit card company debt, you can think of it as you work for the benefit of the credit card company, because their interest is so insanely high.
I remember this incident that happened with me. So when I had a credit card, so when they send you, when you go to make the payment, it gives you three option. Okay, it gives you the minimum amount, and then it gives you last statement balance. Like the three options when you make the payment: minimum amount, and the last statement amount, and others, wherein you can fill any amount and make the payment. I don't know why at that time I randomly selected on the minimum amount and then made the payment. And then I forgot about it because I am not much of a credit card user. I mean, I use debit cards, and my PayPal account is there. So I forgot about it. And then I see my statement, and I was charged almost like I was fined almost, I think, 3 grand for like not paying the money on the time. Like I made the payment on time. What's the problem? I contacted bank, and then they told me that you did not click on the last statement balance. You clicked on uh, minimum balance, which means you don't have money right now, and you are now using our credit limit, and we are giving you credit. That's why we are going to charge interest on that. Luckily, my one of my relatives work in the bank, so I got him, I requested him to please waive off that money. I saved my ass that time, but I understand where this is coming from, and me being a victim of the same thing, I understand how people can get into this trap.
Credit card companies are really, really predatory.
Hmm.
Do you know that they refer to people who don't pay their bills on time as deadbeats, and they make their money from these deadbeats? So if you are someone who's responsible with money, your credit card company hates you, like, because you don't make them any money. So for example, me, I have my credit card linked to my bank account, and it automatically pays the bill each month in full. And the only reason I use my credit card is just to keep my online purchases safe, because
Yeah.
if your credit card details get stolen, you don't lose that much money because it was credit. The transactions get reversed if you get your card stolen, and you get these cashback and things like that for using a credit
Offers,
card.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the only reason I use a credit card is to for these offers and things, the other benefits. But I don't make my credit card company any money whatsoever because I don't pay a rupee in interest. In fact, I'm costing them money by taking all these offers and everything. So they don't like me as a customer. Who is the best credit card company customer? The guy who never pays the bill on time, who doesn't have money, who's actually actively borrowing money to pay his
Hmm.
spending habits. So my friend who I mentioned who can't stop spending,
Hmm.
the credit card company loves her. They want her to not pay the bill because then they can keep charging her interest forever.
Correct.
So credit card companies are really predatory, really, really predatory. In fact, that's why I give people this simple rule: if you can't pay cash, you can't afford it. It's that simple. Don't buy it.
Right. And I think if you would draw cash using your credit card, they charge you even higher. I think almost 36%. I'm not sure of this figure, but it's really, really huge.
I get it from the credit card company's perspective, but
Hmm.
from the user's perspective, why do this? This is like a terrible business deal. Borrowing money at such insane rates of interest is stupid. Don't do it. The thing is that a lot of people, they at some level know this stuff. They just lack the willpower. They lack the willpower to not purchase things they don't need. So a lot of it comes down to being able to keep your emotions under control. What happens to people is that, for example, their friend bought something, and then their other friend bought something, and their other friend bought something, so they have to buy it too. I remember back in articleship, and this was a time where we were all making like 9, 10 grand, 7 grand, things like that. And a couple of people bought iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had articles like who were with me. These guys were buying iPhones.
Oh, God.
For them, this is like a year's worth of income. What are you guys doing? That makes zero sense. But people still do it just because everyone else around them is doing it.
Hmm.
So a lot of it comes down to emotional control and knowing what's good for you and actually being able to implement it.
Hmm. That's correct. And after you have money, and if you still don't understand all this, it's just simply ignorance.
Yeah, it's simply not being willing to do what's best for you despite knowing it.
Hmm. And then people say ignorance is bliss. I don't understand this. Okay, so let's talk a bit about stock market here. So some people think that stock market is what get quick rich scheme. They see their friends making quick money and they get attracted towards it. So how do you think this ideology of get quick rich scheme is misleading the people in their 20s, and what all they should be doing instead of this, instead of being attracted towards this? We've already covered like a good portion on uh, how not to waste money and where what kind of what avenues they should be looking at in order to keep increasing their money, but let's just stick to stock market here for a while.
With stock market, if there's a basic rule, okay, if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So first of all, it's not a get rich quick scheme for sure. For most people who are actively trading, it's a get poor quick scheme because most of these guys lose money. And the reason people think like their friends are making money is because their friends will do like 5 trades, out of which say one or two are profitable, and their friends will brag about these trades to them. Okay, I bought X stock at $1, I sold it at $5, so I made like $4 per stock. And everyone around them is going to get excited. This is so cool. But they will not tell you about the 4 times they lost money because that's not cool.
Hmm.
So you listen to one side of the story. It's not a get rich quick scheme at all.
Hmm.
You will make money if you buy good investments and stay around for the long run. But if you are actively trading, unless you know something special that other people don't, chances are you will not make a lot of money because the trading fees are, first of all, quite high. And secondly, you're not as good as you think. You just are not. especially young people. Like I if I start trading, I will start losing money because I'm not an expert on equity stocks,
Hmm.
and unless I dedicate all of my time to it, I will not be. So the best way to handle the stock market is to buy good companies at good prices and to invest regularly. So buy, like, say, set a particular amount every month and then keep investing it every month regardless of the price. This strategy is called dollar cost averaging, and this works for most people. So just DCA into the best blue chip stocks,
Hmm.
and don't worry too much about what your friends are doing, because your friends, they eventually all blow up. This is my experience. Like, all the people who I know who were trading, who were riding high and
Hmm.
claiming to get rich, they eventually blew up. It just depends on it basically is like, when is your bad days going to come? It eventually does come. Like, every dog has its day. This
Hmm.
guy is going to blow up either today or tomorrow.
Absolutely right.
So don't I would say trading is a bad idea for young people. Just invest in good companies. I think mutual funds are quite good too, because this way you don't have to think too much about which companies to invest in, and it saves you time and you can focus on your business.
Yes. Moreover, you're investing, if you invest in index directly, that are passive funds, you're actually investing in the entire stock market, or let's just say the Indian economy. So if the economy is doing good, you'll also make money. If the overall economy is in a bad shape, then obviously you'll also lose some money. But in that case, you don't have to uh, take any position, or you don't have to liquidate your investment at that time. You just have to hold it and wait for the good times to come. So yeah.
Yeah, the reason people lose money in the stock market is that they sell when the market goes down.
Yeah.
So they let their emotions get to them and they just sell. So what people will do is that they'll buy something,
Mm.
and then there's a shock, the prices are down, they'll panic,
Yeah.
and then they'll sell. And when the market is high, it's going up, they'll get excited again and they will buy. So they keep repeating this thing where they're buying high, selling low,
Mm.
and they will lose money. You have to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Don't sell just because it's down, unless the company itself is like sinking. Don't sell just because the price is down. Just keep holding for a while, and your overall portfolio over a long time will see a good amount of gain. In fact, my advice to for picking stocks is actually pretty simple. I wrote an article on this. Firstly, you want to buy stocks in companies that pay some amount of dividend, especially in India.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why, okay? In India, we have a lot of these spam companies, like, who are basically not, they don't have a real business, and their promoters are just siphoning off money from the company for their own thing.
Sham companies. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're just like going to zero.
Mm.
And there's a lot of them. Like, even a lot of the more popular companies eventually become like a sham company.
Mm.
So what you want to do is you want to invest in companies that pay dividends, and the reason is that when a company pays dividends, it has to have a proper business in place. Because see, when a company has dividend every year, or say every few quarters, what does the management think when they wake up? They think, oh, I better have the business in line and make sure the cash flows are positive, because I have to pay Harsh his dividend this quarter.
Mm.
And what does the CEO of a company that doesn't pay dividend think? I'll just sleep more. Fuck it. I'll just steal some money if I need to. Who's gonna check? So
Mm.
it's way better for people who don't, unless you're like an expert, just buy stock in companies that pay dividends. Secondly, unless you know what you're doing, don't invest more than 5% of your total portfolio in one company. So try to limit your company cap to 5%, and don't invest more than 25% in one industry. So don't, if you're buying banking stocks, don't buy like 20 banks for 5% of, don't invest all of your money in banking. Try to spread it out across a lot of different industries. And 5% of your portfolio should go in gold, just as an insurance.
Mm.
So that is my basic advice on the stock market. Don't sell quickly. Buy dividend paying stocks, no more than 5% in one company, and no more than 20 25% in one industry.
Makes absolute sense, and we can talk a lot more about gold bonds, and gold deposits, and in general holding gold investments. But we'll keep that for another podcast. Let's just take up the last question for today, and that is about IPO investing. So a lot of people are getting interested in IPO investing, and do you invest in IPOs, by the way?
Unsuccessfully. Speaking as a Paytm investor.
Okay. So the question is, should we invest at the time of subscription, or should we wait some years to get to know about the performance of the company and its share price and then maybe take a position? What are your thoughts on this?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't have a good answer to this because I never had that much success with investing in IPOs, and I don't do it at all because
Hmm.
the amounts are not that big. So I don't know much about it. So if you think it's a good idea, just I would say go for it. If you don't, then don't. But I am not an expert on this particular thing.
So I recorded a video on this, wherein I talked about like there are only two kinds of people who invest in IPOs. One who won the listing gains, and the second one who, who are very very like it's one of their high conviction stock, or like they have studied about the company. And obviously there are people, for example, a friend of when Zomato's IPO came, my friend works in Zomato, so she's like, we were very excited, and why wouldn't they want to hold the shares of the company in which they've been working for almost a decade now? So it makes complete sense for them to apply for the IPO. But if you don't understand the game, it does make sense that you just for the listing gains you're applying for the IPO, because more often than not, if it is undersubscribed, then you're going to lose money, and that's
You might have a listing loss.
yeah. Anyway, so let's close this podcast, and I want to ask, what piece of advice would you give to investors, the youngsters who are in their 20s, or who are maybe in college, or who have just started working? So you can talk about investments and life in general.
Don't get into stupid habits which cost a lot of money, like drugs, drinking, and splurging money on things like women, or don't do dumb things. Basically, that's the biggest thing. Because if you start doing dumb things, no matter what your income is, it's always going to be zero. Like you will have nothing left in the bank. And try to not have your lifestyle expand to meet your income. So let's say that you got promoted and your income is now increased by 30%. What most people do is that they start spending 30% more.
Hmm.
So they never see the true financial gain from their new income because they're spending more now. So you want to keep the lifestyle inflation to a minimum. So even though you're making more, try to keep your lifestyle as it is so that you can actually use that money to invest and have the money grow instead of you just spending more now. So that is my main advices to you guys, and focus on making more money, not just on savings. Don't be overzealous about savings because the YOLO guys do have a bit of a point. Like you, unless you're like enjoying life, you're like, what is the point of making money? So focus on making more money and not on saving every penny, although savings are still important.
Great. So do not splurge on stupid things. Do not expand lifestyle in proportion to your income growth. Basically, take control of the lifestyle inflation and focus on making more and more money. Great. Thank you so much, Harsh, for coming and sharing your thoughts and great insights on different topics. We covered like so many different topics today, and I absolutely enjoyed having you on this podcast. And thank you so much. I'm always grateful for having you. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Pooja, thank you for having me, and have a great day. See you.
See you.